Welcome, everyone, to Real Estate on the Up, the podcast that takes you behind the scenes of the real estate world in Orlando. I'm your host, Kyle Madoran, and on this show, we're all about pulling back the curtain with the unfiltered truth about real estate. We're not just here to sell houses. We're here to provide concierge-style service because everyone loves being treated like a VIP. This podcast is your go-to resource for transparency, integrity, and the knowledge you need to make smarter real estate decisions. Whether you're a seasoned investor or a first-time homebuyer, we've got you covered. So buckle up and get ready to move up in the world of real estate. It's time for Real Estate on the Up. Today, we are joined by Natalie Rivera. She is a newer agent who started in the real estate world in 2022. And because of that, she has great insight into what it's like to be a newer agent and what it's like to begin the journey from another career into the real estate world, which is something that a lot of people are considering. And so I know we have people listening who are newer agents themselves and also considering that leap into a real estate career. So this will be a great conversation today. And I love the fact that she's also all about relationship building, which is near and dear to my heart. So without further ado, let's bring her on the show. Here she is, Natalie Rivera.
Hello.
Hello. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Of course.
So give us a little bit of background, just where you're from, how you got your career going, and then what brought you from the career you were in into the real estate world.
Absolutely. So I am based here by UCF in Central Florida. That is where I've been here for the past 23 years. Prior to that, I did live in Puerto Rico. So I am Puerto Rican as well. So it does help living here in Central Florida since we do have a lot of Spanish clients in the area
Yeah, and a
as
lot of
well.
influx of Puerto Ricans as well into the Orlando.
Yes, we're getting a lot of Puerto Rico, we're getting a lot of Colombia recently, some Brazilians, but yes, very diverse. We are in Orlando, right? Prior to doing the real estate, I have done sales in my prior life. I've done door-to-door sales. I've done the medical sales as well. And from medical is how I transitioned into the real estate. The big question is why, right? Why did you jump to real estate? To be completely honest, I felt like to know the product and understand the industry, I felt like I needed to be a realtor because I wanted to be on the investment side of things of real estate, which I still do. But I felt like for me to be a product of my knowledge, I had to just get my license. I didn't know I was going to do this full time until I saw the opportunity. And that's when I was like, oh, you're not capped on your commission. You can make as much as you want. Because that's what was happening in my previous job. I was meeting my quota and then I was capped, and I don't like to be capped.
Yeah, that idea of having no ceiling is a pretty amazing one.
Yeah, so seeing the opportunity that every day, even if it's a weekend, you can go out and make an extra five, 10 or more $1,000, even if it's a weekend, I was like, oh, that's amazing. And here I am, 2 years into it.
That's great. That's great. So the opportunity certainly is fantastic. So how does this compare or contrast with your previous role, which was also somewhat of a sales commission based role? How is real estate different than what you were doing before?
The way is different. A huge thing for me, part of which it does happen here too. With the previous job, part of the another reason why I left besides being capped, I felt like there was a lot of things that wasn't part of my control and it affected my pay, which a lot of things can happen in the real estate industry too. However, I noticed that I'm very good at negotiation and getting things done. And that's what has helped me in the real estate career is that I felt like I had more control throughout the process of my pay versus previous job corporates. Like you got to do what they say, and if it doesn't work that way, there's no paycheck. In this industry, there is a lot that happens. There is a lot of uncontrollable, but there is a lot that we can control to make sure that your clients are satisfied versus just giving up because there's an issue and it's like, okay, the deal's done. That's what I really enjoyed about this process is that I'm able to control as much as I can to at least be able to satisfy the clients and get them to the end, which is usually selling their home or buying their first time home.
Right. It's a unique aspect of real estate that even if you're with a bigger brokerage, it's very autonomous, where you're
Yeah,
almost like your own little business owner, even if you're just a single agent and you make your own decisions. You approach the business the way that you want. And so I love that. That's something that appealed to you because that's something I don't think a lot of people realize until they get into it. There's a lot of self-motivation that's required, and there's a lot of decision making that comes down to each individual agent's preferences.
correct. I'm glad you say about the brokerage part because I am a person that been to four different brokerage. Just because you are looking for a certain thing when you first come into the industry is probably one of the biggest decision that people make when they first get their licenses. Who do I hang my license with? You do expect sometimes brokerages to hold your hand throughout the way, but that's not really the case. Brokerages can show you things, but at the end of the day, it's what you're able to do. What you do is what you get. So that was a really eye opener too, because when you first start off, you think broker is going to help you, you do everything, and it's kind of like you also have to be self-sufficient in this industry to be able to survive.
Right, right. And you've seen some changes in 2022 to now. So how has the market changed since you first started a few years ago?
Yeah, so at first, I kind of jumped into the end of the real estate, which people are like, "Are you crazy? How are you going to leave your corporate job when interest rates are like at 8% right now? Nobody's going to buy, nobody's going to sell." So that 2022 mark, I did miss that like hiccup of 2020 to 2022 when houses were just flying off the market like crazy. Interest rates was like 2, 3%. So I did miss that. I jumped into the market when interest rate was almost basically 8%. But last year compared to this year, because I can only compare within the 2 years that I've been, I've noticed that last year houses were still selling quite quickly compared to this year, even with interest rates being higher last year. What I'm starting to see last year compared to this year, last year there wasn't as many sellers as there is this year. So I've noticed that buyers, I call it Candyland, they have more options to choose from. And if you're not pricing your house right in this market, you're either not selling or it's just taking a longer time to sell versus the last few years.
Well, I think
So
that's a very, very good observation. Yeah, you have to be priced correctly. And because inventory is rising, there's more
yes,
competition for you as a seller. And it's even though interest rates are higher, it's good to be a buyer right now compared to the last few years because there are more choices.
yes, yes, there is. So buyers are having more choices and sellers need to be we can't play around with the market too much how we were doing the prior years with the equity of the homes or trying to price an extra 20, 30. I've noticed houses are actually price dropping extra 20, $30,000 this year versus previous years.
Yeah, I was just looking this morning, and about 50% of the homes on the market have undertaken price reductions in order to sell, which is a lot more than normal. A normal market is about a third. And so
Yeah.
we're well above that number. So it's definitely a changing marketplace and also more competitive, more challenging for us as real estate agents. So, how do you, as a newer agent, especially, stay motivated, maintain your passion in the sort of market that we're in?
I realize my purpose. You do need a why. We always talk about the why, right? Like, what is your why? I mean, a why besides, my goals and everything I attain. I notice I do have a gift when it comes to helping out these clients and noticing, because to be specific, my niche is focusing on expired and canceled contracts. So these are clients that have worked with previous realtors and they were not able to sell their home and they do need to sell. They need to get to their location, whether to be closer to family, bigger house, smaller house, whatever the case may be. So those are the ones that I'm really reaching out to. That's where most of my business comes out from. So that's what keeps me going because it is a lot going on. But just to tell you, July 1st in Central Florida, we had over 200 contracts that didn't sell. That's
Wow.
200 people that need to be where they want to be. They couldn't because of whatever the reason may be. Usually it's overpriced or whatever the situation may be. So that keeps me going, knowing that there is at least one person out there that can use my services and I could get them to where they need to be. And usually they do need the money for whatever the case may be. So,
No, yeah, it's great to be able to look at it on an individual basis for that customer, keeping their goals in mind and helping them make decisions that will achieve their goals. I mean,
yeah.
ultimately what we're trying to do. So there's a lot of challenges, both from your angle as an agent, from buyers and sellers' perspectives. There's a lot of ways that we can help now. And more so than ever, it's important to have a professional by your side through these challenging times. But what are some factors that you've seen help buyers in a market like this? What are things that buyers should be considering, especially first-time home buyers who have had it a little bit more challenging than others recently?
So what I'm noticing, oh man, this is probably, I don't know how I want to answer. No, because the things that I'm noticing, especially since my targets mainly expires and canceled, but a lot of these people are people that bought within the 2020 timeline and now are trying to sell during 20. I mean, it's only been 3, 4 years, so there's not a lot of equity within the home. So something that I would like for buyers to be aware of is where they're buying, because the reason for that is there is a lot of new constructions that are getting these buyers in, which I get it. It's lower interest rates. They are providing a lot of incentives towards closing costs. I mean, I get it. But something that they need to take into mind is that after a few years, property taxes go up, HOA goes up. And if you're here in Florida, we do have something called CDD that also fluctuates your payments. So I like to let buyers know when you're buying new construction, because a lot of them are selling now 4 years later because they can't afford their monthly payment. And that just hurts me because you went through that whole process and now you can't even afford your payment. So it's just being realistic from the beginning of the process of, hey, this is what it is now, but this is what's going to come 3, 4 years down the line. Be aware of where you're buying. Florida is growing so tremendously right now. So it's like you want to be aware. Some people complain about the traffic. Oh, I didn't know this and stuff like that. So just be aware where you're buying. And if it's something you want to stick with long term, just be aware of what's to come as well.
That is such a great point. And I love you, all my home builder friends listening. But yes, builders, it's challenging right now. If you buy a house and it's in a neighborhood with new construction, not only everything that you just mentioned, but if you go to sell within the next couple of years and they're still building in that community, you are competing not only against the other resale properties on the market, but against the new construction and the builder as well. And that is very difficult, especially like you said, the builders offering financing incentives and credits towards closing costs and all kinds of other things. It
Yeah.
it really makes it tough for home sellers.
Yeah, it's happening a lot. It's great. New homes, obviously, who doesn't want a new home? But it's just something that I've noticed a lot due to, well, what I mainly focus on. And it's just an advice that I would love to give out to people. And always do inspection, even if it's a new home. It's
Yeah.
something huge that I recommend to everybody. Always do inspection, because even if it's a new build, that does not mean that the property was done properly. So it's just a little piece of advice. A home is your asset, right? And you want to get the most for it. And then the purpose of getting assets is if you ever sell it down the line, you get a nice little chunk of change that you could do whatever you want with it. So
Yeah.
it's just
It's an
looking out.
investment. It's an
It is.
investment. And I
It
think you're
is.
right. We need to make sure people understand a home should be someplace that you love, makes you feel good, and gives you that warm, fuzzy feeling. But at the same time, it's a big financial decision and
Correct.
it is an investment. You need to consider what your future plans are. And not only, we know that things happen, life happens, and there might
Correct.
be a change. And if you have to sell within the next few years, is this going to be the type of property that you will be able to extricate yourself from to sell and not have to come to the table? I'm actually working with a customer right now who purchased new construction with a VA loan, so put
Okay.
zero down, so therefore has almost no equity in the property, has turned around and had to sell now only about a year after purchasing. And they're unfortunately in a situation they have to bring money to the table
Toward
in
a
order
home.
to sell. It's a very, very difficult situation. And so we
Which,
are seeing more of that now.
yeah, which is where a lot of the creative financing is starting to come about too, which that's a whole topic of conversation. But yeah, I'm seeing that a lot.
Yep, absolutely. Now you work with sellers a lot because you do expireds and things like
Correct.
that. So if you're working with a seller and they're interested in really getting the home sold, they're motivated, what are some tips and tricks that you have for them of how to make their property as appealing as possible to buyers out there who are shopping?
Uh, You'll be surprised. I mean, honestly, people nowadays are aware. I mean, the age of the house, we understand the conditions of the home, but the things that I mainly tell my clients, especially in older homes, I always try to focus on the things that insurance mainly cares about, and of course, that the buyer is not going to be able to afford. So when it comes to roofing, AC, those 4-point inspection, as we like to talk about, we have to pass that to be
Yeah.
able to sell the home. But besides those things, I always talk about decluttering. I like when buyer can see space. So I always make sure before we even go on the market, I'm very, very picky with my pictures. Just so, because remember, a lot of buyers are buying through the phone before they see it in person. So we want to
Yep.
make sure it's presentable through photos before they walk in. So tidiness, clutterness, all that type of stuff to be as organized as possible so that way it could present itself and smell. I always like to buy Febreze plugins for houses that I'm selling. I call them my good luck charms because it does play. Imagine walking into the house, even if it's a little messy, but it smells good, you're still going to want to keep seeing it.
Right.
So those are kind of the tips I tell them: clutter, messiness, and smell. And then obviously anything else that has to do with inspection, just to make sure when inspection comes, usually I get a lot of times they don't want to fix anything because everything else is pretty much done. All of the other stuff is maintenance. So
Right. Yeah. Interesting how we walk into so many homes and people live differently in their houses. Some houses are ready to sell at any moment, right? They're
yep.
perfect. Someone really live here? It's amazing. And then
Yeah.
you walk into other houses and it's like, wow, there's some work to do here because, you want to be as appealing as possible because it absolutely impacts how much money that seller is going to receive. And I don't think some people realize that it's more than just square footage and location. It also has to do with the condition and appearance and presentation of the home.
Correct. Especially like we mentioned earlier, there's a lot of houses up for sale. So you got to remember that one buyer that's walking in through your house, he's probably seen 10 other homes too. So how can
Mm.
we differentiate from the other 10 homes? It's how
Right.
I like to look at it. So yeah.
Absolutely. You mentioned earlier how you want to maintain wonderful long-term relationships with your customers. So, what are some ways that you do that, especially in a competitive market like this, to make sure that they come back to you and rely on you over and over again?
You, our biggest complaint in this industry is communication. And I noticed just a simple conversation once a week, even a text message, an email, staying in contact. I like to get birthdays. I like to get anniversaries. I mean, the usual things that you're like, oh, everybody does it. No, not everybody does it. You think everybody does it, but they don't. Staying on top of mind, holidays, kids' birthdays, things like that do play an impact because not everybody does it. And if you do it from the very beginning, when you have that client and you keep it through. We have CRMs that will remind you. You're going to have a lot of clients throughout, so you're not going to have it all in your head. Use your calendars. As soon as you get a birthday, anniversary, just put it in there and it'll remind you. It'll send them emails because it comes to a point that you're like, oh my God, it's too much. But if you use the systems you use, it helps you retain these clients. So I noticed that I like to do a lot of handwritten things because that doesn't happen a lot nowadays. So
Right.
those are things that I do just to stay on top of mind. Thankfully, just usually people say, well, I think it is what, like 5 years is when you start to get referrals. I'm my second year in this business, in this industry. I've gotten already a lot of referrals from my last year. So it can happen as quick within a year of just having referrals based on their experience that they had with you. So don't stop doing that and keep doing it. It may cost a little money, but it'll pay back.
I love it. Absolutely. Your referrals are the lifeblood of this industry. And it's
Yes.
it's nice to have those warm introductions to people, so you don't have to continue the cold calling and things like
Yeah.
that. It makes it a lot easier. And it makes the introduction a lot friendlier. That first interaction is very positive, which I think
Yeah.
is great for everyone.
Yeah, they do the hard work for you. So
Right.
you just say,
Exactly.
"Hi, I'm Natalie."
Yeah. Yeah. It makes things way easier.
Yeah.
So now addressing agents who are just getting started in the business or thinking about getting licensed, looking back on the last 2 years of work that you've put in, what's one piece of advice that you'd give to them to make sure they jumpstart their career and begin to achieve success?
Just met with somebody that just got her license, and a lot of the things that I noticed that people try to do when they first started, and they try to understand all the contracts and understand all the paperwork, which is good. That is needed. That most of the brokerages will teach you that. But I would say go out there and throw your name out there. I did a lot of door knocking within my neighborhood. I got 2 listings off that. Like, introduce yourself. In this industry, as you know, the more people that know you, the more you'll get that client. I always use, believe it or not, YouTube is my YouTube university. But be a product of your knowledge. Get to know inspectors, get to know appraisers, like get to learn all of that, because once you do speak with these clients, when you sound like you know what you're talking about, they trust you. Remember, people don't work with people they don't trust. So just try to learn every day something about real estate, whether it's how to sell a home, what do inspectors normally look for, appraisals, what do they look for, the type of loans there is. Those little things do come into effect, because you are going to have people come up to you. If you say you're a realtor, they're going to expect you to know everything right there. And you don't have to know everything. You can say, I'll get back to you. But every day, try to be knowledgeable in something in real estate. So then that way, that nugget stays in your mind. If someone asks you questions, you'll know how to respond. I think it's the best advice I can give to someone that's starting off. Don't try to know all the paperwork, because if you don't have a client, how are you going to do the paperwork?
Yeah.
The paperwork will come. Somebody will help you. I promise you. I remember when I got my first listing, I was like, I don't know how to do this, but I got a listing. But get to
Yeah.
know how to talk.
Jump
Yeah,
in. Yeah.
feel confident in talking, and then the clients will come and you'll get to know the contracts as it goes.
Yeah.
That's the easy part. I can promise you that.
No, I think that's wonderful. I love the be curious, never stop learning. I think
Uh,
that is awesome. And certainly there's always something new to learn in this business.
Always, always. The industry is changing, and yeah. And we live, if you're in Central Florida is always changing. People want to know what's coming, even that, even knowing, hey, what theme park or what are they building there, stuff like that. If you see something really massively gone and they're going to do some stuff, get to know what's going on, what's it going to build, because those things do play into effect, just speaking with people.
Absolutely. Natalie, I wanted to thank you so much for spending the time with us today. But before we go, I know there's a lot of people out there who might be listening and want to get in touch with you to ask more questions, to learn
Yeah.
more about your journey. So what's the best way that people can get in touch with you?
Well, I do been posting a lot of information on my social media lately. Not the closer. That's the hashtag. Not the closer. You'll find my website and everything on there. I am very responsive to my phone, so I text or call 321-800-1485. That is my direct number. But yeah, if you go reach out my social media, you'll get to see a lot of updated content about today's market. And if you have any questions, you can reach me through there.
That is awesome. Thank you so much for filling
Thank
us
you.
with knowledge today. We all learned something, and I appreciate that. So thank
Awesome.
you for your time. I wish you the best of luck. I think your career is off to a very bright start.
Thank you.
And yeah, I know everyone appreciated what you shared with us today.
Awesome.
So thank you, and thank you everybody for listening. Take
Thank
care. As we conclude another eye-opening episode of Real Estate on the Up, I want to express my appreciation for joining us. Thank you for being a valuable part of the Real Estate on the Up community. Your time and engagement mean the world, so make sure you subscribe and leave a review. Your real estate goals are my priority, and my team and I are here to provide the personalized attention and service that have earned us high recognition. If you have questions, need guidance, or are ready to make a move, don't hesitate to reach out. I'm just a message away. I'm Kyle Madoran, one of Rate My Agent's top 100 in the United States, signing off. Until next time, take care and make those real estate dreams a reality.